This is the May 22nd, 2019 Children, Seniors, and Families Committee regular meeting, 2 p.m.
That's what I was just talking about.
I came through earlier.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We will begin our Children's, Seniors, Families Committee meeting. And we're going to start like we normally do with introductions from folks up here. Ignacio, if we could start with you.
Good afternoon, Ignacio Guerrero, Director for the Department of Child Support Services.
Bob Minicucci, Director, Social Services Agency.
Good afternoon, Rob Coelho from County Counsel's Office.
Cindy Chavez, member of the Board of Supervisors.
Dave Cortese, County Supervisor.
John Mills for the County Executive's Office.
Great, thank you, everybody. We're going to now go to public comment, and we have one public comment, and that is from Scott Largent.
Ready when you are, bud. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. We can go with the 2 minutes today. I had enough talk time yesterday. What I've been doing lately is trying to figure out why the county's not doing anything about that order. My charges were dropped on Thursday for that case that I was arrested for out in front of the Family Justice Center, fighting to be a father. So this order is still on the front door. And this order, very unconstitutional. It says you can't talk to people, you can't go up into line, you can't hand out literature. And remember, they were trying to take over the sidewalk. And they're still trying to put this in people's faces at the courthouse. Now, this one right here is dated February 22nd, 2017. In November of last year, it was revised. And what they did is they took out the 25 feet, and that was the reason I was supposedly arrested. There has to be a point where, I mean, you people start to put pressure on the courts to stop doing this to people. We should be able to organize. And even like what happened yesterday, there's proper ways to go about it. Like Joe got used to clearing the chambers out. People want to be heard. They have their protest outside. They do their gig. It's all great. We respect people's rights. No one got hurt. No, you know, slam bam, it's done, okay? I don't know why we're not respecting that out in front of the family courthouse. And we're not doing that right here at the Hall of Justice. We are running away people that have every right to stand out in front of there. You have every right to have a protest sign. I can understand not using a bullhorn as crazy as the ones that I have, but you still are allowed to do that. But not by this. Judges in our county are making up the law. And Jeff Rosen is supporting this activity. And what you guys got to hear him talk about yesterday is the fact he doesn't listen to a single ordinance that you produce. Any laws, rules, he doesn't abide by any of that. And he said it in here probably about a good 3 or 4 times that he will only listen to a judge. He will let the courts decide. That's very strange because this right here, he's allowing the courts to decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have any consent items, and do you have any changes to the agenda, Dave? Okay. So we're going to go to item 4, and this is our Office of Women's Policy's Family Friendly Workplace Awards. Welcome, Pratima.
Good afternoon, committee members, supervisors. I'm here to answer questions. My name is Pratima Pandey. I'm the director for the Office of Women's Policy. As you can see from our report, the Commission on the Status of Women gave out the Family Friendly Workplace Awards for 2015, 16, and 17, and they have chosen not to do so until OWP comes back to them with recommendations on how to revamp it. And so we've put together a process that we'd like to engage in the next 10 months to come back to this committee with our recommendations for revamping and then bring it back to CSW. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
So the only thing I wanted to ask for you all to consider, and I apologize, I should know the answer to this, but you'd be back. So you'd be back in March 2020?
If we can do it sooner, yes, but March 2020, what our hope is to bring back 2015, 16, and 17 cohorts that got the bronze, silver, and gold certification. We want to bring them together for focus groups separately to find out what was it that they were able to do once they got this certification. Because as I mentioned, the certification was fill out a form and you'll get a certification. Have we actually moved the needle on improving outcomes for the workers in our county? That's what we want to be able to do. As well, we want to be able to connect with local business groups like Silicon Valley Organization. The Levy Business School has a Business and Human Rights Scholars Association. We'd like to connect with them to find out what are best business practices that actually incentivize businesses to do better for their workforces and not just check a box and get a certification.
Yeah. So I don't know, I don't think they're in here right now. But one of the things that one is I think you should take time to look at it. I think there's no downside to looking at things that we've done. We'll come back to that. Thank you. But looking at things that we've been doing for a while to check, to think about whether or not they're of value or not. I think one other question that I would like to better understand is that based on the awards we're giving, or how does the award line up to the priorities of your office in terms of the things you most want to emphasize and that you most want to work on? I think that's a really good question. The other thing that I would just say is if we're doing something that's going to be a reward, I think I'd also be curious from our honorees if there's a way to make the award more valuable to them. And I'm really reflecting on the Healthy Nail Salon work we just did. It occurs to me that part of the opportunity there is if it creates a business opportunity, like if people have options, would they choose option X or Y? And so, for example, we've done these awards, but I don't think we've ever bought a 2-page ad in the Business Journal. I don't know that we have a website that you can go click on for these, like that says if you're looking for somebody that is a really family-friendly workplace and you're looking for a job in our county, here are the places that we recommend you look. Do we have anything like that?
No, Public Health maintains a mother-friendly list because they have grant-funded money to actually roll out a mother-friendly award, and there is a list of businesses that are mother-friendly. But all we have at OWP's webpage, if you try to look for family-friendly, is a toolkit. It's a toolkit that allows you to increase your capacity in being a family-friendly workplace. But as you rightly pointed out, we need to find out how we've helped them move the needle. Also, if you recall, in 2014 and 2015, when this award was first thought of, the goal was to try to incentivize it similar to the Green Business certification that we give out, but we were mindful that we don't want to create a barrier for businesses in our county to create an additional certification requirement for them that somehow makes it burdensome for them to achieve. Instead, we want to create something that helps engage in increasing competencies in the business place. And as I said, we're also talking to the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement as well as the county contracting individual who is managing the diverse business program to learn from them. What can we do to ensure that businesses are actually improving the lives of workers?
Can you remind me what the genesis of this was?
So in 2014, when the Living Wage Ordinance discussions began, the board file included discussions about generating a family-friendly workplace award. And in 2015, this committee received a report from the Policies Committee and Office of Women's Policy and Commission on Status of Women about family-friendly workplace awards, which was based on the Santa Clara County Workplace Collaborative. And they basically said, we don't...
Was this Dave's? Was it me?
It was tied, as Ms. Pandy mentioned, it was tied with the original referral on the living wage. It was one of the elements of...
Is it my referral?
It might have been yours or both of yours. I can't recall specifically.
It was May 20th, 2014, file 71958. Supervisor Ken Yeager and Supervisor Dave Cortese made a referral to the board. And in 2015, on April 21st, file 75681 by Deputy County Executive Sylvia Gallegos to this committee on the workplace.
But
The return, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It wasn't the referral that specified this program. It was one of the enumerated parts of the ledge file that came back from the administration.
So it wasn't board generated, it was staff generated.
Yes.
Okay.
The specific idea was.
So let me just say this. I think I'm good with us not doing this anymore if we don't see a value to it. So I think investigating it's fine. I wouldn't wait till March 2020. I'd give yourselves till December. If you see there's a value add to the work of the Office of Women's Policy, great. If you don't, fine. I don't, unless you feel differently about it. Yeah, I really don't. Because I think that, honestly, unless there's money attached to like, for example, one thing I'm learning about the Healthy Nail Salon program is that we had to fund it. We had to fund the staffing. Then we are not doing actually a very good job of helping people find the resource. So the incentive, if we're not making people do things, the incentive has to be really incentivizing. So up to you, but I would investigate it, come back in December, and I just want you to know I won't be mad if you come back and say, I don't think we should do it. Now, that being said, let me just say one thing I would be really interested in is as you're talking to the business school and as you're talking to the actual folks who participated, to me, what would be more compelling is if people did meet a minimum benchmark and then we had a way to advertise it. That's way better than an award. And right now, and I would suggest talking to the Healthy Nail Salon team over in the Environmental Services Department because it's completely voluntary. But we've learned a lot. Like we're trying to fix some things there, so they're a little ahead of us. Okay?
That's very helpful. Thank you. I just want to comment that meeting a minimum standard benchmark, you don't mean just barely complying with the law, correct? Because that's required by most
So
places.
the reason I want you to talk to the Healthy Nail Salons folks is we're doing something above what the law requires.
Thank you.
It's voluntary.
Yes.
Now, the other thing I would just say is that there are a lot of other activities that are going to be happening relative to childcare and a whole bunch of others where there will be, I think there are going to be minimum standards that we're going to require. And again, I think the county overall needs to think about how to communicate the good actors. I'm not sure it falls within your department to do that. And so but I think it would be great if you did the investigation and gave us some thoughts and ideas. The one thing I would just ask you, I would not necessarily need you to throw another department under the bus to do this work. So what I would just say is you don't need to recommend where it goes. Just help us understand what you learned if you don't want to keep it. Because I feel like this has been a weird fit for your office. At least that's feedback I got from someone on your team. So it would be good to know the answer to that, if it is a good fit or not.
Okay.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
All right, so let's go to the VASC. And yay, our other favorite topic. Thank you. Thanks. Go ahead. No, it doesn't sound like it.
Here we go. Oh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Roberto Mendoza, Capital Projects Manager for FAF, here to report on the progress status of the VASC. Just to go back to the onset of the project.
I'm sorry, Roberto.
Sorry.
Do you mind just holding on 1 second? We have a consent item that I skipped, and actually Justin caught it from the Human Rights Commission. So, Justin, do you want to speak on this item? And this was item 10, and I missed it because it wasn't on my cheat sheet. AIM. That's how much I rely on you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not blaming you.
Did you move this to consent? Is that what happened? The
we usually do it's usually on consent.
All right.
So we could take it on consent, and so I'll let you speak to it since it's on
All right.
consent.
Well, thank you very much, Supervisor Chavez and Supervisor Cortese. My name is Justin Bourne from the Human Rights Commission, and I actually just wanted to speak to you today to just encourage you to support the work plan and budget for the Human Rights Commission. And I was just present here today to answer any questions that either of you have or anybody from the committee might have about the work that the Human Rights Commission is doing. So thank you very much for all the support that you've given our
I'm
commission.
sorry, yeah, and that'll get to 7E and F.
Is
I'm
it?
sorry, I got these two notes at the same time. So, okay, thank you.
I can come back though, all right.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And then we'll take, on consent, we'll just take the minutes if we can, take that action. Second, all right. Sorry about that. Take two,
Okay.
ask. Thank you.
All right.
Apologize.
Action. To present the progress update on this VASC, the vision statements and vision concepts for this VASC, Vietnamese American Services Center, is for 4 agencies to work in collaboration to provide social services, public health, primary health care to the Vietnamese community. The service model and operations diagram, which shows the various levels of engagement with the clientele and the agencies acting in concert to deliver services. We are currently at the conclusion of the construction documentation phase. We are permitting during the plan check process. Currently, we are entering the bidding and negotiations phase. So there's a lot of behind the scenes activity at this point. You're not seeing all the pretty pictures and renderings right now. We're zeroing in on the dollars for this project. So we are doing our due diligence, working through bidding and negotiations, and sorry, I'm out of time. And so in order to keep the construction costs to stay within our allotted budget.
So could you say more specifically what that means?
We have issued, at this point, we have real bids on a portion of the project, which we had issued early. Early package, we were testing the waters and seeing if we could proceed with the project, at least part of the initial phases. Civil engineering, some of the structural work. Those numbers are coming in substantially higher than the final estimates had envisioned. So for the remainder of the project, we are going through exercises to contain costs, to identify items and materials and that do not alter, do not affect the program or substantially change the character of the architecture. So those items we are looking to promote going forward and getting actual bids on these alternate methods and means. So
Okay,
that's
thank
where
you.
we are. Okay. These are the next few slides are just what's in the construction documents at this point. Your 3 levels, your second floor, primary health care, pharmacy, testing lab, and the 3rd floor is your staff areas. Like I said, we are currently in the permitting phase, the bidding phase, and we have been also conducting a series of community outreach events and taking feedback from the community. We are also engaging with a public art consultant to incorporate public art into the project. The next steps or next events upcoming, we are looking to do a community event in the summer, and we're also looking to break ground on this project late summer, early fall. So perhaps we can combine the two and have a groundbreaking community event.
That would be great. Do you have comments or questions?
No, not at this time. I appreciate the response and the it would probably be good to keep us apprised off agenda of any initial value engineering
Absolutely.
trade-offs that are being contemplated. I think Supervisor Chavez and I in our offices would be particularly interested in just keeping apprised, I guess is the best way to put it, even if those decisions are yet to be made, just to see how that's evolving and developing.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will just ask a few things. One is that I recognize that whenever we get close to this part of the process that we start to do some value engineering to get us over the hump. And I also recognize that the budgets are tighter than we expected, and so I understand all that. Two concrete requests I would like to make. One is that we do a check-in at our next meeting in June that just looks at that gets an update on the value engineering. It doesn't need to be, I think Supervisor Cortesi's point is a good one. We don't need a big written report, but just to better understand the decisions and discussions that you're having to make so that we're ready, we're really prepared for them. And we can work with you. I mean, really, it can be a verbal update just so that and also so we can make sure that we understand what the timeline is for the fall. That would be really helpful. The second thing that I just want to encourage is that whenever we're doing community outreach, we just want to make sure we're doing meetings for the whole community. If folks are asking for meetings just with their community, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure they stay whole community meetings. And the reason is that I want to make sure there's a lot of warmth and acceptance that everybody's had the same opportunity to play a role and influence us in terms of how the building's going to look. And I'm raising that because within the city of San Jose right now, there's a lot of consternation over two projects that are existing among the community in general. I don't want us to get caught up in them. So I'm just saying that to you and to our staff that we want to make sure we're reaching out to everybody. And then finally, as it relates to the groundbreaking event and the community, combining that with a big community event in the fall, I would really like to make sure that we have notified all of the parties within the county that have been working on this, because I think along with you, there have been a lot of leaders that have really stepped up and added this as an extra activity to their already pretty rigorous activities to be able to help us with the VASC throughout the county. And I want it to really belong to a lot of people. So I just want to make sure a lot of people are included in that process. So to that end, I would just say working both with our offices, and I know that we've been asking the county exec's office directly to get involved in this, I think would be of huge value. All right?
Yeah, I will work with
Great.
Amy on that.
Perfect. Anything else? Great. Thank you. Thanks very much. All right. We're going on to item 6, and this is intern and earn. And we want to do both. Welcome. And if you all could just introduce yourselves. Thank you. Yeah, this is the first test. Can you get the right mic? I'm sorry. It's there you go.
Okay,
You're on.
great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Angela Shing, the Director of the Department of Employment and Benefit Services, and I have Senior Research and Evaluation Specialists Roshni Shah and Sophia Gomez with me. Great. So we are here today to provide you an update on the progress of the County of Santa Clara Intern and Earn program. And we wanted to give you two updates in particular on the outreach and enrollment of youth into the paid summer internship component, as well as the recruitment of the summer work site positions. So the first slide that we have here, let's see, as of May 20th, we've enrolled 482 youth Our goal is 550 youth, and we are optimistic that we will reach our enrollment goal by the time the youth internship program starts on June 10th. And you can see from the slide, the main outreach components have been postcards, text messaging campaign, and direct outreach by the DEBS employment counselors, which did include cold calling and text messages to eligible youth and their parents. Use of the SEC Intern and Earn website and social media campaign, and partnering with community school partners and school site recruitment. We noted on that bottom left of the slide is the winter break. We were very lucky that all of the schools coincided in one particular week with the winter break, and there was a week-long sign-up session event where we were able to enroll 242 youth, which is about half of our goal. So that was a huge milestone that we were really excited about. The other thing to note is that about 30% of the youth that are registered are actually returning from last year. So that's a pretty neat sign of success that I'd say. On the worksite positions side of it, our target goal is 600 intern worksite positions. We've actually already exceeded that goal and are at 655 intern worksite positions. So we're really excited to report that. The other thing that's interesting is about 62% of those employers are returning from last year. So another really great sign of success of the continued success of the program. So really excited to report that as well. Let's see here. Really, I'd say the other thing too is that the intern program does start on June 10th. The internship is 8 weeks in length, and employers and youth can continue to sign up through June 10th. So really would encourage people, both youth and the intern worksite side of the house, really just want to encourage people to continue to sign up. They can go to our website, which is the Santa Clara Intern and Earn website, Facebook, Twitter, we're on all of those means. So really just want to encourage people. And at that point, I'd really just turn it over to these guys to report on our research and evaluation.
Thank you. So I'm Roshni Shah from the Office of Research and Evaluation, and Sophia Gomez and I will talk a little bit about the evaluation process that we have gone through for the last 2 years for the Intern and Earn. So in 2017, the Office of Research and Evaluation collaborated with the Department of Employment and Benefits Services to really evaluate the impact of this program on the youth. And as you can see from the slides, in 2017, we actually started with a pre-survey. So before the youth participated in the internship, there were a series of questions. And after the youth completed the internship, they had the same series of questions. And across the board, in 2017 and 2018, we saw really, really strong findings. The 5 domains that we're focusing on, first is mentorship. So currently, do the youth feel that they have a mentor? Then we're looking at their confidence levels in understanding an employer's expectations before and after the internship, their confidence levels in communicating at work before and after the internship, finding a job in the future, how likely they felt that this internship would help them find a job, and also identifying career options. This data here is really looking at the results of the same youth who completed the survey before and after. So we had a large number of youth complete both individual surveys, but we're today wanting to focus on the same youth before and after. And I really want to draw your attention to the 2018 data. You can see, especially for communicating at work, finding a job in the future, identifying career options, we're seeing increases. And these ones are also statistically significant increases as well when we're doing our analysis. So really across the board, we're seeing that this program has been impactful for the youth. When we look at the 2018 post results, 90%, 9 out of 10 youth are saying that they understand the employer's expectations after they complete the internship. So the value that this program and the entire internship process has been giving to the youth, really now when we look at it from a quantifiable sense, from 2017 to 2018, we're continuously seeing improvements and that recognition and appreciation from the youth that they're really finding this valuable. So this year in 2019.
Can you show just real quickly
Sure.
the places you see the most significant, the statistical
Statistical
significance?
significance?
Thank you. Because they all look so close to me that I I don't see that.
Employer expectations, they're not marked here. I apologize for that. Employer expectations, finding a job in the future, and identifying career options were the three that were significant.
But show me when you say statistically significant, what is statistical significance?
All that means is that we conduct what's called a t-test, and in a t-test we're looking at the results before and after.
Right. What I'm not understanding is what's the percentage that you consider statistically significant?
So we're looking at what's called a p-value of less than 0.05.
And why is that the delta? Or why is that the benchmark you're using?
Typically in research, a 95% confidence interval is really what we're looking for. And so it could be 90. We can change that threshold, but 95 is really what is considered robust in terms of research and evaluation. And so this 95% is what we have mapped in terms of our analysis. We're happy to send kind of a
No. I guess let me just walk through this. So employer expectations, pre-survey 218, we have 88% of young people feeling confident that they are ready
that they understand the expectations of their employer.
And then afterwards it goes up 2%?
It goes up to, 90%, 2%.
And so that 2% you consider statistically significant? After we
do all of our statistical testing, yes, that came out to be significant.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. So Sophia Gomez will talk a little bit about what we're doing in 2019 and how we're trying to improve this process as well.
Okay, thank you, Roshni. So Sophia Gomez as well with Office of Research and Evaluation. So we're actually looking for 2019 to expand what has been done through a more collaboratory effort with youth. So really working with them differently in terms of the evaluation. And so I think and what we're hoping to do is really work closely with a returning intern to be able to co-facilitate focus groups with interns from previous years to really dive deeper in terms of their career options, educational goals, and how, in general, this program has impacted their lives. So it's working differently with them in terms of the process. And so that's what we're hoping to do, and as well looking at the pre and post evaluation that we've done before, looking as well and in terms of adult mentorship, employer expectations, some of those key bucket areas that Roshni has already explained. But with the expansion of it is really working with the youth as collaborators. So it's youth data-driven information to inform program delivery and services. And so with that in mind, we do have a video with a intern from 2018, Alisa Beltran, and she basically talks about her experience and placement in the program.
My name is Alyssa Beltran. I am 20 years old, and my internship is here at the Board of Supervisors with Supervisor Cindy Chavez. We went into the foster care system around 6 years ago. It was very hard for us at first because obviously it's hard for somebody to place 5 girls in one house together. I'm the oldest out of 5 girls, and I have 4 younger sisters ranging from one's 1 year younger than me, so 19, all the way till 8. So for me, I felt as if going to school and being a better me was the best option to be a better role model for my younger sisters. Before this internship, I didn't know anything about how the government worked in this kind of setting, like with the Board of Supervisors and all this. So with this internship, not only was I exposed to much of the office life, I was also exposed to how to write professional emails, how to address people formally rather than informally. Make sure you take advantage of the program. It means a lot because with a program like this, not only you have a little bit of power to make change because we're working on public policy and we're working on implementing new things to help people. So it's not just us sitting here walking around getting people coffee, it's you doing actual work. I'm Melissa Beltran and I am intern in EARN.
Thank you. She was fabulous. We had great kids last year, and we're looking forward to getting a couple more kids this year. So thank you for all that good work. I have a couple of just questions that some young folks asked me. Do we have a preference? So if a child was with us last year and they want to go back, for example, to the Board of Supervisors or to the health and hospital system, do we have a preference for that?
That's a good question. Let me call up Rafaela. She would know.
Good afternoon. Rafaela Perez with the Department of Employment and Benefits Services. And certainly if the youth has a preference for a work site that they were there before, we certainly make that available, although it is more of a first come, first served type of thing. So the 200 and some that came in during the winter break, they definitely did get their first choice.
And were those young people, were they motivated to come in early because they wanted their first choice? Is that your sense?
Correct.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's really interesting because
early adopters, they were fabulous.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a couple of foster youth who said that they wanted to sign up for something, but that you'd explained it was a first come, first serve, and that a lot of them, not you personally, but that someone had explained that to them. And they said, no, we think you should have to mix it up a little bit, that you can't just be at the same place. And I thought that was actually interesting feedback from them, and I don't have a preference about it, but I just thought I would share that feedback.
We actually, if I may share this story with you, we sponsored a youth last year where the previous year he had done warehouse, and because he came really late in the game, my office was the only office available. So he got to do a lot of office work, and he was so proud of himself. He basically said, I didn't think I could do office work because my dad is a construction man, so that's the type of work that I was looking for. But now I know that I can do office work and I can be you in a few years.
Wow.
So,
I know, don't you love that when they're saying, I want your job?
Right. So he's going for it.
And I really like the idea of working with the youth on getting their sense of evaluation. There were two things that I really wanted to just ask if you all would consider as you think about how to evaluate the program. One is that I know there are some basic opportunities that get created for young people when they participate in something like this. And part of the reason, I know Supervisor Cortese has walked away, but I know part of the reason he initiated this is that one of the issues that we were really made well aware of from the youth that we were talking to that were in particular foster youth, but youth who had similar experiences, Rafael, like you just explained, that they didn't have networks that they could rely on, that there was not there wasn't an adult who was going to come and take them on a Saturday to go to their office, or, that they didn't have that kind of networking. So one of the things I'm really interested in understanding is, are we teaching young people how to network as part of this experience, and can we measure, and by that I mean professional and educational networks. So I saw that you have those new categories, and I'd really be interested in understanding if they believe that, and if we've helped them understand how to maintain those professional relationships. Part of the reason so anyway, that's just a basic, because that was really a basic tenet of why we were trying to do this. And your thoughts on that?
I think we can definitely work on something like that during, because the other thing that we didn't talk about it today, but the other thing that we're looking at is really at adding sort of like a back to school night, college night, so we can teach them about financial aid. So this could be an opportunity when we can talk about it. So I know we're doing that during the 4th of July week, where we get to sponsor them at our site for a day or two. So we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, I think that, go ahead.
Oh, if I may, and I think these are really important questions, and one of the reasons that we're looking at involving youth, and especially in the focus groups, is to really ask these type of questions, deeper questions in terms of, do you have the social capital, they may not use those words, but nonetheless, do you have those resources that will be able to help you, guide you through career and educational opportunities? And so I think that whole participatory evaluation will lend to some of these deeper questions.
So one request I would like to make as an evaluation, and we wouldn't have to do this with all the young people, but with some of them, I think it would be interesting to get them to express what their networks look like now versus what their networks look like afterwards, even post the training, because what they think about their networks, and in part because young people are so reliant on social media, that I will just say, of the kids that we had in our program last year, And my office's program is, I will say, it's rigorous. Like, they get a lot of experience, and it can be a little overwhelming, I think. And so we're trying really hard to make it less intense. But at the end of it, the young people that knew how to write a thank you note, and I think that's not a normal thing. People don't even have pens and paper. I mean, I don't know if kids buy paper anymore, you know? So how do you do that? And do you do it via email? And how do you know to do that? So, like, one thing every employer should, I mean, every kid that goes to our program, we should be teaching them how to write, whether it's an email or an actual card. That's a courtesy that's just not, it's not innate. And, you know, I know that from my own child. Like, I said, you know, we had my son was being recruited for some sports, and I said, oh, did you send them a note? And he said, for what? And I said, well, they took the time to meet with you. And he said, oh, you know, so we had to talk about it. And I thought, wow, that's interesting that he wouldn't have, like, I was impressed with these people we were meeting with. So I was ready to write him notes, but it really needed to be him. So anyway, that's partly why I'm requesting that.
So we're actually doing, which is new this year as well. So every year we try to improve on learnings from the previous year. We are, during the orientation, we will take a couple of hours. We'll bring them in to do the onboarding. And then during those 2 hours, we'll teach them about writing a thank you note, so how to behave at work. Don't be on your phone, type of thing. So we will use 2 hours during the onboarding week.
So the other thing I wanted to recommend is that I think, and maybe this is something John even could help us think a little bit about, mostly just because of the work that you do. And did you want to jump in? Go ahead, Rob.
When you're done,
No, please.
The question I was going to ask is, one of the categories that you ask on the front side and the back side relates to mentorship. And so tied to Supervisor Chavez's question, I'm wondering how that's framed. Because part of the social networking and the ability to maybe find opportunities in the future is whether or not there's going to be an ongoing relationship with folks you've had the internship with. And so that would be the type of thing that I'd be interested in, whether they feel like they could contact this person in the future for a reference or for an inquiry or to help them plan their future. And based on the category, I just can't tell what's been asked and what the follow-up is.
Right. That's a great question. And actually, that's, like Rafael mentioned, that's part of our learning process too. In 2017 and 18, the way that the question was really framed is, currently, do you have an adult in your life who you can turn to for mentorship? But this year in 2019, we've actually reframed that question to be a little bit more concrete and specific, that you can turn to them for guidance. And so each year, as we're kind of learning and talking to the youth, we're also understanding that some of these questions, the way we interpret them, are a little bit different than the way the youth are interpreting them. And so because of that, we're still following the same domains in terms of what we're trying to capture, but this year, actually, we also piloted the questions with the youth in order to make sure that they're understanding the questions the same way we are understanding them, and they'll be getting that survey. With that feedback, we did our revisions, and now in 2019, again, same domains, but we're asking them in a way that really is getting to what we're trying to get at the end. And so just to address that question, mentorship this year is going to be a little bit more concrete and focused, but I think with this recommendation, we can dig a little bit deeper too.
That's a good point. What I was going to mention about with John's shop is that when they onboard staff, they onboard staff here. I think it would be interesting just to make sure that our onboarding is that we're getting at least some feedback from your office about some of the protocols that you know to use. And one of them I'll just use as an example I thought was very interesting. When I was here years and years ago, like when I very first came when I was a policy aide, I remember when I got onboarded that there was somebody from your shop who talked a little bit about the like banking and stuff. And I know we're doing some of that, but do we have how deep do we dive into what they do with their paychecks?
We actually do quite a bit on that. And again, this is a learning from the first year when the youth got their first paycheck and they thought we had made a math error because they were not aware of the taxes that we take away. So we use that as a financial literacy class. So we go through that because they get a card where the money is loaded. So we go through that process of showing them how to use the card, and some of the financial literacy. We actually had, I think last year we had the credit union that came in and did a class for them as well.
Good. I would like to make sure, and that's another one I'd want to know. What do they know? What do they understand about their paychecks pre and post that they didn't know? And in particular, I'd be interested in understanding a little bit about whether or not they feel compelled. Like, I know some kids feel really compelled to save money. I know some of our students gave me that feedback that they were saving for something. And then others, it was such a new concept that it seemed still very amorphous to them, even though they were old enough to spend money. It's kind of interesting. And then the only other thing I wanted to ask is there a mechanism for us to ask people about whether or not their circumstance, they have a hardship as they are working with us? And in particular, let me just say what I mean by that. Like we've had, since I've been here, we've had a lot of interns. And actually when I worked, let me just use my experience back at in the labor movement and running a nonprofit, that we had some young people that came to work for us who had a difficult time getting to work, not just because of transportation, not having just money, but just how far they were coming on buses or light rail. And the other is that not all young people seem to have a resource for lunch, and I am just interested in if there's an appropriate and sensitive way we can have that discussion with them as well.
So they do have, each of the youth is assigned an employment counselor that works closely with them, and they have those conversations. And because we have identified that food is one of the issues that surface during the summer, at a minimum for the youth that are placed in the Senate Road campus, we actually partner with Second Harvest Food Bank, and we deliver both breakfast and lunch for the youth that are stationed at the Senate Road campus, which is this year is approximately 30 so far.
Mm-hmm. I think that I would just encourage us to figure out how to ask those questions a little bit more. A bit more, and then look at other places where we know we're going to have large number of young people this summer, that to see if we can expand that program. Yeah. And I don't know, for example, how many we'll have in this building, if it's as big as what you have. Mm-hmm. So, but whatever the second and third largest locations are, I want to make sure we have that same opportunity, even if that means where we know we have a county kitchen, we have a voucher. Mm-hmm. So if they're working in the hospital or they're working here, we have opportunities to make sure that they're not hungry during the day.
Yeah, definitely. The other two, we do have two other sites. One in North County where we partner with a neighbor church and we feed them there. And then this year we're working with the Register of Voters, where they're taking a group of interns and going to a neighboring school. So they were working on that. I'm not quite sure where we are with that, but we are looking at that.
And also, let's include the hospital. That's too easy for us to not address.
Okay.
But if we can, and also depending on the number of young people you have here, I'd be interested in understanding if we can do a partnership with the cafeteria. Great. Well, anyway, this is amazing. I don't know, Dave, if this was your idea, so I'm just jumping all over it. Just want to make sure you get feedback.
Yes, I appreciate all of it. If somebody already asked this question, I did step in the back for about 2 minutes, so I apologize, just say so. But there's just, so the gap between 242 and what our goal is in terms of enrollment it just doesn't say anything about that. It kind of just jumps up to, okay, we have 242, our goal is such and such, 550, and then we're trying to get 600 positions, but if you get 600 positions, trying to figure out it's already May.
We're actually at 482.
482,
yeah,
okay. So you were just talking, the 1 week was the
exactly. We hit
242.
The winter break, we're at 482 now.
That's helpful. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. I was starting to worry.
Yeah. Sorry
okay.
if I misled you.
No, there was perhaps a little sequential gap in information there, just reading straight through on the packet, but yeah. I appreciate the answer, and I'm sure you probably said it before and I just missed it. Thank you. I'm very happy.
And by one other thing, the San Jose Giants would be interested in taking interns at some point. So Amy, if we can connect them with Scott. Yeah, they were really excited about the program, and a lot of and I also mentioned this to the 49ers as well, just because they have some office positions. I have to work on them for another year, but the San Jose Giants are in.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. But their hours are really funky. So I wasn't but anyway, so we'll get you those names, because I'd love to see if there's a way we can engage young people in those kinds of jobs as well.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on to our commission work plans and budget. So this is item 7. And so we have and if there's anybody here, so we'll let staff do a presentation, and then we'll ask if there's anybody here. Justin, if this is a time you wanted to jump in, or Scott too, but we'll let staff present, and then we'll go to the public, and then we'll give feedback.
Good afternoon. Curtis Boone, Management Analyst, Office of the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
And my name is Jean Anton, and I am the staff lead for the Boards and Commissions team.
And we're basically here to answer any process questions and provide whatever you need.
Great, thank you both very much. Thank you for being here. So we have 2 speakers on this item. Why don't I have them? Justin, did you want to add anything specific that you're excited about that you're working on? You're welcome to come back up, and then you can be followed by Scott Largent.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. So while we have changed our name as a commission this year from the Human Relations Commission to the Human Rights Commission, the work plan you have in front of you is the first work plan as a Human Rights Commission. We haven't changed our mission, and I think that's an important point to consider, is that our mission is still the same, where we're incorporating the principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into the work that the Board of Supervisors is doing. And really our primary goal is to be that sounding board of advice to the board. In fact, we're writing a letter right now that you'll receive next week about Board Policy 3.54, for instance. So we're trying to really find ways that we can work with the board in being that mechanism for advice in relation to human rights issues. The other thing, too, is we've moved our office in the county that we're working with more closely from what was the Office of Human Relations, which is now the Office of Mediation and Ombuds Services. We'll now be working with the Division of Equity and Social Justice. So all the offices that are in the division, we're starting to work closely with. And really our goal is to align our missions much more carefully. So with that, the work plan is pretty robust. We have a lot of lofty goals this year, but really the big thing are those 2 big alignment issues.
Great,
so thank you.
Thank you. And then Scott, are you still here? Sorry, I'm so blind. No? All right. Anybody else who would like to speak on this item before we go to staff? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing part of this. And then I just had a couple of requests. One is that I know all of the boards and commissions have different budgets based a little bit on their activity and a little bit on how they were started and all of that. And I wondered if there is a minimum a minimum budget that's required for them to operate, or is money attached when there's an event, or how do you all think about that?
In regards to commission budgets, some of the commissions have budgets because they've specifically requested them, and the board has reviewed that in a budget process in prior fiscal years. We've never looked at it, to my knowledge, from a perspective of there being a minimum budget for any commission. There are certain incidental expenses that there is a very small budget in the clerk's budget to address for commissions in general, but I don't believe we've ever looked at it from that perspective.
Okay, I was more just curious in terms of setting expectations. I know the Human Rights Commission, the Human Rights Commission at different times has come forward with initiatives, and I thought it was odd actually that we were using the inventory process to fund them instead of looking at work plans now, and then you all recommending as part of the budget what the implications of the work plans were. But I also recognize that they don't all meet frequently, and that there are some other challenges. But I would just like you to help us think about that for not this year, but next budget year. Your insight on that would be helpful.
And some of them also, like the sister counties, for instance, have their own fundraising process and stuff, and they fund that way.
And even if maybe if you can just brainstorm that and give us a chart that says here's their source of funds and what they normally use them for, and then here's our recommendation. And if your recommendation is no change, that's fine too. It's just that I remember last year feeling very conflicted because we were handling some commissions one way and other commissions another, and we didn't really have a way to consistently respond to them. Thank you. And then I also see that one request I'm going to make is that we accept the work plans and the budgets, and that we do a formal letter from the clerk's office to all of the boards on our vacancies. I see that I'm guilty in one committee of a lot of vacancies, and my Catholic guilt brimming. I want to make sure that we share that guilt with my colleagues about all of the openings. And I think, Scott and others have raised that for some of the commissions, our lack of appointments has really crippled them in their ability to function. So I think just getting that report to the board as whenever this goes forward, if we can just put the commission vacancies, and then I'll try to keep it off consent and have a discussion with my colleagues about it.
So for clarification, you want a full report on which vacancies and which district offices as part of the work plan item?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, because it's hard for us to ask them to follow a work plan when they don't have people to do it. I mean, it just feels not appropriate.
Can do.
So some of it, does that include attendance reporting also? I mean, to us, this report you're referring to?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because I hear it's really difficult. Obviously, I have a staff member who's monitoring it constantly and works with the clerk's office, as you know. But what we hear from folks who approach us, and it happens a lot to me, I don't know about you, Supervisor Chavez, is we can't make quorum, we can't make quorum. But then some of them complain that it's because of vacancies, which would make sense. Some complain that it's because of lack of attendance. And we've always had a little tension on the board. We visited that a few times as a board of supervisors as to whether, the board really wants to sort of divest an appointment at a certain point, or whether we need some some kind of language that disqualifies someone after three consecutive non-attendances or something without an excuse by the chair. I mean, something, because my guess is it's both. Does that seem right to you? I mean, that there's some combination of both going on?
The rules vary from commission to commission based upon the ordinance code and the enacting resolution or whatever, but most of them have clauses that allow for declaring a seat vacant after 3 or more absences. It does vary.
But can they do it? They must have to it must have to come back to the board, since it was a board appointment in the first place, right?
Exactly. It's the board is, the general practice is that the Board of Supervisors retains the authority to actually do the official vacating of the seat.
Yeah. I just think it needs to pop up on a more automated way, so it doesn't, put the other commissioners on the spot trying to judge whether or not, they should be, sort of outing a colleague for, for attendance issues or whatever per se, rather than if we had a system where the clerk would just notify us on a dashboard when that is happening, and, with sort of a stop sign or an alarm, an alarm graphic that says this person actually is sort of eligible to be removed at this point. And then somebody could do some work at our level. That may be our offices contacting that person saying, you were a good appointee. When we appointed you, did something change? Are you ill? Is it family issues? Do you mind if we replace you at this time? We've had conversations, I know, in my office. I'm sure others have had like that. But it's just the elevating of it is, I'm not sure we have a really expedited system for that.
So we do have a periodic attendance report that our office prepares and submits to your staff on, I believe it's a quarterly basis. which does provide information about individual commissioners' attendance for each commission, and if I'm not mistaken, highlights those who have chronic attendance issues. But we can certainly look at how we can develop that.
May I make a recommendation? I think that this might be as part of the annual discussion we have with your office through FGOC, because I think you're formally, you report through that committee, that if you just would maybe put the annual report on our agenda, and that way we have a chance to look at it. And that way, if it's really bad with some commissions, maybe that would just allow us to bring it to the full board again without putting it on consent, so that we have a discussion about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe we do need monthly reporting. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. Maybe we want to change that for a while to see if we need to pop this stuff up a little more aggressively to the board, which also will, I think, send a message to folks. We appreciate their service. They're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. People aren't getting paid, but that there is some scrutiny about attendance on a month-to-month basis. Sometimes that kind of accountability helps a lot. The other thing is on the issue, and I'm just putting this out there, Supervisor Chavez, while we're both here in public, I don't want to make any kind of a motion or anything, but I'm just, after being here for 2.5 terms, I feel like the appointments that are assigned to offices should also automatically default to anyone on the full board, or some sort of secondary rotation to the board to make sure they get filled if they haven't been filled in a certain amount of time. I'm saying that not accusing any of my colleagues of not being timely. I'm saying that as a self-analysis. I just think that, again, accountability-wise, if sometimes we feel like, well, let's go out. We only have 2 applications. Let's go out and get some more. We do work hard at it. We put it in our e-blast and everything else. Sometimes another office has got, maybe somebody that's knocking at their door saying, boy, I'd really like to be on the Human Relations Commission right now. And, I don't think it has nothing to do with, it's systems accountability. It has nothing to do with that supervisor's bad because they didn't fill it or they're slow or anything like that. It's just, hey, it just timed out and now it's wide open. The original supervisor can still appoint, but it's now open to anybody to appoint at that, at that time. I think it would create a sense of urgency. I know my staff would come to me and say, make a decision because we're going to get timed out here in a week, or consciously decide you're going to let it go to the full board at this point, So I'm not expecting you to opine on that. I just was directing that to my colleague Supervisor Chavez as just an idea. I mean, how far wrong can we go with experimenting a little bit to see if it starts to close some of these gaps? If it doesn't work, we can always unwind it.
Yeah, no, and just as you were talking, Supervisor Cortese, it came to my mind that the practice I know used to be on the 10th floor, and I'm not sure if it's still the practice, but that the various board offices would sort of monitor the vacancy reports, and if there was an office who had a wealth of interest in a certain commission and didn't have any seats available on that commission, they would go to the office that did and say, hey, we have some good people. Might you consider appointing them to fill the vacancies? I know that's more informal than what you're suggesting.
It does happen. Yeah. It's just not quite. I mean, and I agree, in a perfect world, that should be enough or would be enough. Another if we had a dozen commissions instead of as many as we have, we'd probably manage that a lot better.
Who you telling?
I think it's just as overwhelming enough that, even on our best day, we don't have time, Brown Act considerations and everything else to just really, sit down and work that all out. And so I'm just trying to look for mechanisms, the switch in the tracks kind of thing that automatically, dumps it into a larger pool of supervisors, for example, and sort of signals or green lights. It's now okay for everybody to jump in on this without the supervisors having to, walk back and forth and work the floor so directly. I don't think it should foreclose the informal process either, where that makes sense. So anyway, that's just some some thoughts on my part that, we could take that up again in FGOC.
That's really good feedback. And then one other thing, I just wanted to make an invitation through you to all of our boards and commissions. In August of this year, on August 17th, we're doing, my office is hosting with a couple of other organizations a Women's Leadership Summit. And we had a lot of women. We did one already, and we had more people than we were expecting, frankly. We had over 200 women come. But it might also be a great place for any of the boards and commissions where we have commission chairs that are really interested in recruiting. We could make available a table for them so that they have an opportunity to talk to folks. We have a lot of folks who are really interested in particular positions, and one of the challenges with some of these is that, you have to be, it's a child care advocate or a lawyer with X number of years experience. Like, there are some pretty needle in a haystack opportunities, and the women who will be participating are from all over the county. So we'll aim, if we could just send the clerk a very formal invitation to the chairs of all the commissions that especially, and by the way, even if they are full now, but they want to meet people who are potentially interested, there were a lot of folks they were just excited to change the world. So this might be a good way to help us do that. Great, thank you. All right, do you have anything else on this item?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
So hearing nothing else, and what we're going to do is we're going to accept the work plans. Wait, what's my action item here? To receive the report on all 4 of these commissions and on their budgets and on their work plans. So we will, so received. Great. Thank you. And thanks all of you who came out, who are serving on these commissions. All right. I already did that. I'm sorry, Scott, on this item.
I stepped out to the restroom. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Was it on this topic?
Yeah, no, that was exactly why I filled out a card.
Okay, go ahead, Scott. Since I know you're here, you were here.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
No, I appreciate that conversation happening right there, although they left. I run into a lot of people when I mention the attendance for the committees, and especially the Office of Women's Policy. People come up to me when they hear me at public comment talking about this, and these ideas are fantastic, Dave. I really like what you're talking about right here. They don't send a letter when they deny somebody. If they're not able to be on a commission, they're kind of left just high and dry. A lot of women are coming in here, it's primarily women, and that are trying to get on the Office of course, Women's Policy, and same with the domestic violence councils. But they said that to me. We just don't get the feedback. We don't find any information out. And I kept telling them, maybe go up to the 10th floor. Maybe come in here to public comment and start asking. Because at these commissions that I'm going to, they're the ones that are not making quorum. And we start getting that feedback and finding out exactly who is not appointing anybody. Right now, Supervisor Simidian has 3 open seats on the Office of Women's Policy, and it's also the same on the Domestic Violence Council. Both are not making quorum. And I like the ideas coming out of you today, Dave. I really do appreciate you saying that. It just doesn't seem like people are paying attention. I'll go to the next meeting and it won't make quorum. And I'll go to the meeting after that and it won't make quorum. It's been 2 years that they haven't been making quorum. Sad thing is I'll probably be in here in another year talking about the same committees not making quorum. And when we had that event here, Cindy, and we got everybody in here, and I know I called it a dog and pony show, the sad part is all these committees that you guys are giving awards to and pumping up were not doing their job. And I'm tired of handing out ribbons for 20th place. These committees are failing our county, and if the people can't show up, you need to start making phone calls. And we had 1 seat on the Domestic Violence Council. I'm sorry, it was the Jail Diversion and Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Shawnee Williams from the PD, Deputy Chief Shawnee Williams, was a no-show for 2 years. We should throw him off of the committee. Sam Liccardo should fire him for not showing up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to, the staff left. Okay. Thank you to the staff that worked on that. And we're going to move to item 8, and this is a verbal report from Social Services.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to mention a few things regarding the state budget. The governor released his revised budget a couple weeks ago, and I think as we mentioned, as part of his initial budget submittal in January, we were certainly pleased with some of the growth that we had seen for our programs in particular. And just wanted to give an update with the May revise, some what we consider additional good news around funding for some of our programs. Typically at this time, this is where folks can sharpen their pencil with some of our caseload numbers, which are pretty dynamic. On the IHSS side, there was increased funding statewide. These numbers for across the state, or about an additional $75 million to address caseload growth in that program. On the CalWORKS and SSI side, we continue to see caseloads decline there, so there was a little bit of rebasing there. However, one of the big adjustments that we've been pushing for some time on the CalWORKS side was really on the administrative side. We've talked over and over about how our funding cycles follow the caseload, and that makes it very hard to staff up and staff down according to what funding you have available at any given moment. And it never quite coincides with what the actual need is of the time. And what the governor did do is flatten that out and actually put an additional $40 million into the CalWORKS side to flatten out some of our single allocation for the CalWORKS program, and created a revised budget methodology of how that will be calculated in the future. So we're very pleased to see that. Additional money in CalWORKS on outcomes and accountability. It's an important topic for us here. We talk a lot about that, and we're also having funding come down to help bolster that on the CalWORKS side. That's tied to our single allocation methodology piece, where we said we're willing to be much more accountable if you're willing to flatten out some of our funding cycle. So that's come to fruition, and we're very, very excited about that. Another change on the CalWORKS side relates to childcare and the Stage 1 childcare, and there's an additional $40 million to expand that phase of childcare up to 12 months. So that just helps in terms of the seamlessness of folks maintaining their childcare. Administrative costs on the CalFresh program were expanded by about $15 million, and that acknowledges some of the work that we're currently engaged in right now, which is where SSI recipients are becoming eligible for CalFresh benefits. This will fund the workload associated with converting those cases in. That started in earnest a couple weeks ago, and already we've seen close to 3,000 additional folks come in and apply for CalFresh who were formerly ineligible for it as they received SSI.
And I'm sorry, that was over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's exciting. Yeah. It's exciting to see. Our staff may not be so excited because of the crunch right now, but it's definitely good to see that taking place. As we mentioned, there has been work happening on the IHSS side to reform the maintenance of effort. There was additional $15 million put in the budget to address some revised estimates around timing and gaps in that part. Another $55 million on another maintenance of effort piece adjustment across the state, so we're excited about that. Resource family approval, there's been a significant backlog across the state, and there's an additional close to $15 million put in as a one-time expense to address some of that backlog.
And is that for evaluating their appropriateness as background checks?
Yeah, it's to speed the process along.
Checks.
Yeah, exactly. There's also an additional $20 million for foster parent recruitment and retention. That's an area that we were concerned about the money sunsetting, so it's good to see some money there. And also another $50 million or so for child care related to some administration costs, as well as some emergency assistance for some of the programs. So all in all, we're pleased with what we're seeing from the administration. It was also broadly, beyond just our programs, broadening of the state income tax credit. They don't quite call it that, but that's essentially what we recognize it as, and another kind of important anti-poverty measure that we're excited to see. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Is there going to be more money actually for the resource families, especially in the high-cost areas like ours?
No.
So that any change, we're going to have to do it ourselves locally?
Yeah. It's, like I said, it's a pain point that we have pointed out across the system. It's an open conversation. We mentioned before, we're hopeful that as the chairs get filled in the new administration, this is one of the top priorities.
Oh, right, that this will be one of our, right. I think one request I'd like to make is that after we get through the June budget, because I know this is just, you guys are still like waiting to figure out how all this will play out, is that I would like us to have a discussion about the resource family opportunities and challenges, at least in August, if not in June verbally, just so that we're laying the, because I think we're going to have to be able to respond. I'm nervous about where we have kids right now, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Share that concern.
Ignacio?
Thank you. I have a legislative update on Senate Bill 337, authored by Senator Nancy Skinner, who represents a portion of Alameda and Contra Costa counties. The bill passed out of the Senate this week with a 37-0 vote. It is part of her Child Support Reform Act. One of the key aspects of the bill is that increases the amount of child support that's passed through to custodial parents that are currently receiving CalWORKs. I'll explain a little bit about what that means. The bill seeks to ensure that low-income families who are on CalWORKs receive more of their child support payments. SB 337 would align California law with federal law and allow CalWORKs families to receive $100 in child support for one child and $200 for two or more children, as opposed to the current $50 that they get, which is in addition to what their CalWORKs grant is. So the purpose of this is to pass through more of the funds to the families that are on aid. There are complex federal rules for determining how child support collections are allocated when families are receiving CalWORKs between CalWORKs and the government for recoupment purposes. As a general rule, child support is paid while a family receives assistance, or child support paid while a family receives assistance may be retained by the state. 47.5% is their share, the county share is 2.5%, and the federal government is a 50% share. Under current state law, children receiving aid through CalWORKs, Medi-Cal or foster care, who are also receiving child support are permitted to only keep the first $50 of that payment. This is referred to as the $50 pass-through. Also a disregard because it doesn't count towards their eligibility requirements for continuing to receive public assistance. The state keeps the remaining balance of the child support collected, everything but the $50, as reimbursement for state and federal government costs associated with TANF assistance to that family. This bill increases that from 50 to 100 for one child and 200 for a family with two or more children. There's evidence that when more parents and more of parents' child support payments go directly to the children, that parents are more likely to pay more as opposed to having the money go for government recoupment costs. So that's the underlying philosophy behind the introduction of this bill. The second part of this bill, which is still being fleshed out, is there's a provision included for child support debt forgiveness for arrears or back due child support owed to the government that may be deemed uncollectible or unenforceable. There's still more work to be done to iron out and flesh out specifically what that will be defined as, but there is a mechanism in place as part of the bill that would potentially provide relief for folks who owe child support, but there really is no chance of collecting that debt.
Say that last part again.
So there's for individuals who owe child support back to the governments for welfare recoupment costs. There's a part of the bill that deems that debt can be deemed uncollectible and thus forgiven or expunged. And so they're still working through that process to determine the criteria for that.
Is the minimum, is that amount that up to $200, is that the federal level?
Yeah, so it's going to match. It's going to match with the feds.
So we can't exceed that.
Right.
That just for here, that seems like so little money.
Yeah, well, they're getting their CalWORKs grant, and the child support is a portion of that.
Yeah.
There are some states in Colorado where they pass through the entire child support amount. And so there are some states that do full pass-through. The challenge with that is that it impacts state funding because they rely on the recoupment of their portion. That 47.5% recoupment cost is built into their budget. So you're talking about millions and millions of dollars that they'll lose in revenue. So that's usually one of the sticking points for doing full pass-through to families.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then we are adjourned until Wednesday, till like for an hour. We're adjourned, and then we're going to be back here at 4:30 to talk about property tax exemptions for seniors. So wait for it. All right, thanks everyone.